We're really thrilled to have you all here. We have quite a few participants and it's exciting to see the turnout. Thank you. So welcome to the Tips for Submitting a Competitive Proposal Abstract webinar for the 2020 International Social and Behavior Change Communication Summit. We really are so glad you've taken the time to join us. My name's Lisa Folda and I'm a member of the program subcommittee of the International Social and Behavior Change Communication Summit, which I'll refer to as the SBCC Summit going forward in this presentation. As I expect you know, the SBCC Summit will be held in Marrakesh, Morocco from March 30th to April 3rd of the coming year, 2020. We're hosting this webinar to help guide prospective applicants through the proposal and abstract submission process for the summit. I'd like to be clear, we're using those words interchangeably. There's not a different process for each. For our purposes, proposal and abstract mean the same thing. A quick overview of the webinar. Today's speakers will review conference themes, provide tips to creating a competitive proposal, review deadlines, go over the submission portal on the website, and we'll have time to answer questions. Our format today is in 3 consecutive presentations. Our first speaker will be Leanne Wolf, who'll provide an overview of the summit and this year's themes. Our second speaker, Lindsay Leslie, will share tips for creating a competitive abstract or proposal. In the third section, Leanne Wolf returns to review deadlines and guide you through the submissions process. During the question period, this group will be providing support to make sure you get the answers you need. With the addition of Andrew Cunningham, an SBC specialist on the project USAID Advancing Nutrition. Andrew's a member of the programming subcommittee for this year's SBCC Summit and supported abstract review and selection for the multimedia showcase for the SBCC Summit in 2018 in Bali. Again, we'll have time for questions at the end, and you can submit at any point during our presentation through the chat box. We're looking forward to a thorough and exciting webinar, but a few housekeeping announcements first. All participants are on mute, and we would also ask that you mute your video as well. For some of our participants, there may be issues with bandwidth, so it's helpful for everyone to have their video turned off. Also, please be advised that we are recording this session and that both the presentation slides and the recording will be made available on the Summit website at the conclusion of today's session. You'll be able to find it on the Proposals Abstracts tab of the main SBCC Summit site menu. So with that, our presentations begin. I want to take this opportunity to introduce our first speaker, Leanne Wolf. Leanne is a senior program officer with the Johns Hopkins Center for Communication Programs, a member of both the Secretariat and Steering Committee for the 2020 SBCC Summit, and also part of the Sponsorship Subcommittee. Leanne has been with CCP for almost 12 years with a broad range of experience, including most recently living in both Rwanda and Pakistan. And with that, I will hand over to Leanne.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you all for taking the time to participate in this webinar. The International SBCC Summit provides a dedicated, immersive environment critical to agenda setting. It is a space that allows for our community to rapidly share, synthesize, and provide feedback on research, innovation, and implementation. As a field grounded in engagement and communication, this environment not only allows us to accelerate the establishment and dissemination of evidence, benchmarks, and standards of practice, it is also essential in allowing us to share ideas across sectors and countries while energizing our morale and commitment as practitioners. The overarching theme of the 2020 International SBCC Summit is strength and diversity, recognizing that we all have different experiences and knowledge, and with that diversity comes collective strength. The inaugural SBCC Summit took place in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia in 2016. We had more than 750 SBCC professionals from over 50 countries, all eager to share knowledge and lessons learned, forge new partnerships, and strengthen friendships, disseminate recent research and tools to enhance the science of art in SBCC for global health and development, and to show the world that our community exists and it is strong. Never before have so many SBCC professionals come together with the sole purpose of strengthening their professional community and elevating SBCC's contribution to the development agenda. During this inaugural summit, more than 600 abstracts were received, and the number of registrations shocked even the conference planners. In 2018, this momentum continued as 1,200 participants from 93 countries came together to assess what works in SBCC. In addition, we sought to advance SBCC as a field and to accelerate development impact. In 2018, the summit moved from East Africa to Southeast Asia. In Nusa Dua, Indonesia, we truly felt the energy as our colleagues came together to discuss what we really mean when we talk about what works. There was a focus on entertainment education, and conference sessions showcased different interventions with space for dialogue and discussion, all with the goal to assess and generate insight around what we know about what works and what does not. From this larger international platform, we saw more localized efforts. There was a Francophone summit in the Ivory Coast, a regional conference in Kenya, and a local one in South Africa. We are truly coming together as a community, and not only a voice to be heard, but a strong voice. At the end of Nusa Dua, we made a commitment that together we can unleash the transformational power of social and behavior change communication. The key word here is together, that with diversity, we gain strength. But this diversity can also bring challenges. As a field and during the 2020 SBCC Summit, we want to explore how this diversity of fields and expertise fits together. We want to ask ourselves and each other, what is the strength of each? How do they overlap and how do they enhance each other? How do we bring new groups not steeped in SBCC to the table and into the conversation? And how do we do better collaborating to find solutions? The 2020 Summit will strengthen connections across diverse but complementary approaches, asking where do we converge, where do we diverge, where do we stand together, and where do we share common purpose. The summit promises to be one of the biggest ones yet as we dig even deeper, covering more topics and chart a path forward together. We expect at least 1,500 participants from a broad range of disciplines, including agriculture, environment, and democracy and governance. And we also expect a record number of abstracts. We have three primary themes guiding the content and discussion of the conference. The first theme is catalyzing transformational change on agendas of urgency. Our world is constantly changing. What we know today will look very different tomorrow. And with this rapid pace of change, adaptability, innovation, and transformation is needed. Using the SDGs as our guiding star, we will use this theme to look at how we can accelerate change in the urban interconnected areas of climate crisis and global heating, gender equity, community engagement and citizen action, health access and equity, and humanitarian action. The second theme is titled Future Forward. We are all interconnected in ways we never were before. And the ways we communicate about development and social change issues are rapidly evolving. Through this theme, we will look at where the field is now and how SBCC is poised for the future in these new contexts. Sessions will focus on understanding and engaging with the evolving digital and technological innovations, developing and promoting a code of ethics for the field, identifying new theories, frameworks, and methodologies, countering negative opposition, disinformation, and fake news. And the last theme is connecting the dots. Through this theme, we will reflect on the strength and diversity of the SBCC community, exploring ways to further increase collaboration, skills sharing, and capacity building. We look forward at collective action, not only within the field, but across different sectors, geographies, disciplines, stakeholders, and across generations. We want to bring people together, donors, practitioners, youth, governments, and the private sector. We want to connect the dots so that we can realize real change. This year, we will have a particular focus on youth, the next generation of SBCC practitioners and leaders, weaving this group into and across the different themes.
Thank you, Leanne. For those of you listening, there is a lot more detail on the themes in our submissions guidelines and on the website. It's really exciting to think about the ways that all of your work will contribute to this conversation in March. I want to transition now to our section on tips for creating a competitive proposal and introduce our speaker for this section. Lindsay Leslie has around 5 years experience with CCP, and she has worked extensively in Nigeria, Ethiopia, and the Philippines. For any of you who are part of the SBCC Summit 2 years ago, you may remember her because she's done this presentation before. She's got a lot of great ideas to help you strengthen your submission for consideration. Over to you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Lisa. And I'm excited to again speak about the abstract proposal process for the 2020 summit. I'll get started by defining the basics of an abstract proposal and then describe each presentation format in more detail. For the purposes of the SBCC summit, we use both abstract and proposals interchangeably. But what we mean is essentially a powerful summary of what you've done and/or a big idea. The summary should be concise and allow for a quick understanding of your program, your intervention, your research, or your big idea, and its importance. Abstracts need to efficiently cover a great deal of information in a very limited amount of space. And they serve to help the reviewer understand why this program, this intervention, this research, or this idea matters. Remember that for most proposals and abstracts, you will not submit any supporting documents. Only the information on the submission form is what is included. So it is critical that the abstract makes sense all by itself. So the anatomy of an abstract or proposal includes the following parts: the introduction, the methods, the results, and the discussion conclusion. The introduction is where you describe what this is about. You briefly state the purpose of the program or the research study. This is where you would include any major objectives or hypothesis. In the methods section, you include what you did and how you did it. Explain how the program or the challenge or the opportunity was addressed or studied. This is where you would include key sentences and phrases describing the methods used during the program or during the research. In the results section, you highlight the principal findings and include major statements on important results. You share what you learned. And in the discussion, you elaborate on what those findings mean. This is where you include the so what. Why is this important? The link at the bottom of the slide will take you to the guidelines and will allow you to understand more detail about what's involved in each of those sections as you develop your abstract or proposal. The 2020 summit will incorporate a variety of presentation formats: oral presentations, poster presentations, pre-form panel presentations, TED Talk style, ComTalk skills building workshops, and you'll also have the option to submit SBCC or EE related media to a multimedia showcase as in past years. What's new this year are the Blue Sky sessions, which we'll describe in more detail shortly. I'd like to walk through each of the session formats in a little bit more detail. The oral presentations provide an opportunity to speak in front of an audience for a short amount of time. During those sessions, presenters will have approximately 10 to 12 minutes to present. This will be followed by a period of discussion with the audience. After reviewing all submissions, the Summit Program Committee will organize the oral presentations into panels based on a common issue, a topic, an approach, or some other aspect of the submissions. Posters will be presented within an exhibition space at various designated days and times during the summit. Proposals for both oral presentations and poster presentations may be either research-oriented or practice-oriented or both. And by both, we mean that the work specifically tries to bridge or relate research and program issues and/or approaches. As you submit, you can indicate the orientation, whether research or practice or both, and your preference for an oral presentation or a poster presentation. Moving on to the preform panels. These preform panels are a group of 3 to 4 related proposals that are submitted together and reflect a common issue, topic, challenge, or question of interest. The panels are formed by you, those submitting the proposal and abstract. Selection for preform panel slots will be highly competitive due to limited space. So here's an early tip if you're interested in this format. You are encouraged to be creative in how this pre-form session is structured. Find ways to ensure maximum opportunity for audience engagement and learning. For example, you may propose presentations followed by a panel discussion, a debate format, a speed dating format, or some other creative way to engage in idea exchange and learning. For the Com Talk, one speaker is able to narrate well-formed ideas or share personal experiences or insights. These talks are 10 minutes or less in length. The topic should be something new or surprising, a challenge to the status quo, or a compelling new argument to a well-established and accepted idea. At the end of this Com Talk presentation, at the end of this webinar presentation, we'll share links to previous Com Talks to provide a better sense of what we're looking for. As you consider this Com Talk format, please note that all individuals selected for this Com Talk format will be required to complete at least one rehearsal with the coach. So you'll have plenty of time to receive feedback and practice your Com Talk and perfect it. For the skills building workshops, those are opportunities to propose a 2-hour session that will develop new or strengthen existing skills in a variety of SBCC areas for summit attendees. As you prepare your proposal or abstract, again, think creatively about workshop formats. The committee is seeking formats that are structured to ensure maximum opportunity for audience engagement, interactivity, and learning. This was a very popular format in 2018, and we look forward to more exciting skills building sessions in 2020. Here are other important considerations. Now that we've covered the basic overview of an abstract proposal and the 2020 session formats, I'd like to walk you through a few questions you might want to consider as you develop your proposal or abstract. Why is this work important? Why should we, the SBCC community, care about the problem and the results? Explain the scope or scale of the issue. Who is impacted and in what ways? Often these questions help you guide the original development of the program or the research. And those same points also need to be reflected in your abstract. The next question, what is the purpose or objective of your program, is essentially, what problem are you trying to solve? Who is your target audience? Be sure to include that in your abstract or proposal as well. Next, what were the components of your intervention? You want to describe in some level of detail your approach. What was the extent of your involvement? Is it evidence-based? Was it innovation? In what ways? And then what are the results? Aim to include some level of data, meaningful data on reach or impact, or maybe qualitative results with some examples. And don't forget to explain the implications and perhaps speak to the global relevance if appropriate. For the SBCC Summit, it's very important to clearly articulate a link to one of the summit themes. So how does this work contribute to our understanding of catalyzing change, or the role of SBCC in the future, or improving coordination and collaboration, or connecting the dots? So my last tip on this slide is to start to draft these responses well before going to the online submission form. You can start to brainstorm this, and it'll help you to craft your abstract or proposal. And then you can use those early notes as you review the guidelines and then later submit your abstract or proposal. Okay, I'm just gonna go back for one slide to the Blue Sky session, which I mistakenly skipped. My apologies. Blue Sky sessions are out-of-the-box group discussions that are about 75 minutes in length about a topic or issue that is emerging and has potentially important implications for research and our practice in the field of SBCC, but for which evidence may not yet be available. As I mentioned earlier, this format is somewhat new for the 2020 summit, and if you're interested in submitting for this format, here are a few things to keep in mind. A Blue Sky session should aim to provoke a breakthrough in thinking that could potentially lead to new directions for program practice, policy, theorizing, or research. Similar to the pre-form panel, the single session coordinator will submit all of the information for the presenters or contributions for the proposed Blue Sky session. The Blue Sky sessions aim to bring together 4 to 5 people who have been thinking about or struggling with or trying to develop approaches to the topic or issue. And you, as a submitter, have the opportunity to propose those 4 to 5 individuals. You're encouraged to think outside of your own circle of acquaintances as you pull together this session. The multimedia showcase provides 15 minutes to showcase multimedia or SBCC materials, abstracts submitted that are not primarily focused on a multimedia product itself, its design, content, or its use in a program should not be submitted here, but instead should be submitted under the oral poster format. The 15 minutes that you have to present on your multimedia involves introducing, screening, and briefly contextualizing the product in a short presentation. That also includes up to 7 minutes to screen your multimedia product. All submissions should be dubbed or subtitled if the audio is in a language other than English. The Summit website outlines various examples of media, so please take a look. Here's a tip for those with media longer than 7 minutes in length. Either you could prepare or edit a shorter version of the media to submit, or you could apply for one of the limited extended screening spots, which allows for media up to 120 minutes in length. Okay. So moving on to criteria for review. The proposal and abstract should be developed to fulfill the general criteria that applies to all conference submissions. The reviewers use this criteria to judge the abstracts and will either accept or reject the abstracts based on this criteria. So here's a better understanding of some of the criteria. Alignment with conference themes is encouraging you to make sure that what you submit fits within one of the conference themes discussed earlier in the presentation. Relevance to SBCC programs and importance to the field encourages you to stay within the realm of SBCC. There are times to think outside the box and there are times to stay within it, and you'll want to make sure that your work relates to SBCC. In fact, reviewers will pay special attention to how your work is elevating the field. The next 2 items, clarity of content and soundness of the conclusions or prospective offers, are a reminder that you will be judged on how well you describe the work completed, the workshop concept, or the blue sky idea. Given the focus on the future and connecting the dots, the conference committee is especially interested in the ability of the proposal to result in new insights, perspectives, and/or partnerships for the SBCC field. The next point speaks to the committee's desire to organize a conference full of engaging, thought-provoking sessions. They are actively seeking proposals and abstracts that enhance the audience experience, knowledge sharing, promote skills building, and encourage discussion and debate. And of course, other important criteria include the appropriateness of the proposed format for the proposed content and the level of facilitation required to make the proposal successful. This is just a reminder of the 3 conference themes that are paramount to keep in mind as you develop your proposal or abstract. This slide is an opportunity to understand the similarities and the differences between the different session formats available for the 2020 Summit. You'll notice that each format has a slightly different submission structure. Each submission will require a summary, and please do remember that that summary is what will appear in the conference program. However, there are some differences in the requirements for the background, description, results, and those are highlighted in purple bold text here. The preform panel and the skills building workshops require a little bit different background in terms of objectives. There are distinct differences in the methods across all of the different session formats. And the discussion for preform panels and blue sky sessions also are slightly different and require a little bit more detail. You can find more information on these differences on the Summit website in the guidelines. And there are links available at the end of this slide, at the end of this webinar. So to reiterate, there are several session formats and you are responsible to understand the specific criteria necessary for a successful submission for the format that you select. Please plan ahead so that you can familiarize yourself with those differences And you'll also have opportunities as you're submitting to receive guidance, which Leanne will speak to in just a bit. So to wrap up, I'll share a few final tips you can use to strengthen your abstract or proposal before submission. You'll want to run through these tips to ensure you have a very competitive abstract. My first tip is, of course, to start early. Give yourself time for several rounds of revision. Don't rush this. The second tip is to read the proposal abstract submission guidelines, which are available on the Summit website. And the criteria, as I just mentioned, varies by session type. So once you decide on a session format, please carefully review the guidelines for that particular format. You can highlight differences, you can memorize it, but just make sure you follow it. Let the guidelines be your North Star and use those detailed instructions and the information on word count as you develop your proposal or abstract submission. Number 3 is to be sure you are clear on requirements. And if you have questions that surface during this webinar, please feel free to include those in the chat box. But if you have questions that surface following this webinar, you can email info@sbccsummit.org with specific questions. And there's also an FAQ section on the Summit website where you might be able to find additional information. Number 4 is to consider who you are presenting to. Is it implementers, researchers, funders, experts in the field, non-specialists, both? As you're developing your abstract or proposal, consider what you want to share with those different groups and how that might inform how you develop your proposal. But there's actually several layers to this tip, as the reviewers themselves will come from diverse backgrounds. So they may read your abstract proposal and perhaps read it through a certain lens or not be familiar with the terminology, the acronyms, the approaches that you use in your work every day. So aim to write an abstract or proposal that anyone could understand. In fact, imagine that you're explaining your work to your grandmother. Reduce the jargon and get to the point in a clear manner. Tip number 5 actually closely links to the previous tip, in which will help both reviewers and conference goers understand your work or your big idea. Follow the ABCs of a great abstract: accuracy, brevity, and clarity. Accuracy is to include accurate information. Please don't include misinformation as you develop your abstract. Brevity is get straight to the point. You only have a limited amount of space, so use that space wisely. Clarity is to use simple language, avoid jargon, and be as concise as possible. Tip number 6 is to be bold and compelling. You'll want to think about your successes as well as your failures. You want to present steps for your future steps for your work, or discuss implications of your work in the field. This will help to pique interest in your work and helps reviewers and conference goers to make connections to their work and perhaps to other areas of the field. Also remember that what you submit in your abstract is all that reviewers have to go on. So be sure to get their attention and provide them with enough information to understand why your work needs to be shared at the 2020 Summit. Tip number 7 is to be as specific as you can. Your abstract shouldn't be abstractly related to the conference themes. Remember that the conference themes are what you need to link to for a successful submission, and link your discussion and your findings back to those themes in a concrete way. Tip number 8 is to take advantage of allotted space to provide evidence or data or examples that can strengthen your submission. But a word of caution here, you don't want to overdo it. Don't include fluff, as this will not strengthen your abstract. Be strategic on what you include, what language you use, and which type of session you choose to present your work. Tip number 10 is to review, refine, reread, and then repeat. Continue to rework and revise your abstract. Read it out loud. Read it to your coworkers, your classmates, your close friends, as this will help you to catch any errors. It's your responsibility as the author to submit a correct abstract. You can ask your colleague or a friend to help. So to finish up, you'll want to review the conference themes. You'll want to understand and start to consider how your work or your idea links to those themes and which format would be best for you to present your work. You'll want to then select the appropriate session format and use the guidelines and the tips available through this webinar and on the website to develop a strong abstract or proposal. And then you'll want to submit on time by October 31st so that you can present at the 2020 SBCC Summit. Thank you and good luck to all of you. Back to you, Lisa.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. I really appreciate you reviewing those skills and tips about a strong proposal for the summit. We're going to move into our third and final presentation segment about the submission process and deadlines. I'll turn it back over to Leanne to go over some of those details for us.
Thanks again, Lisa. So the first port of entry to submitting a proposal abstract is through the homepage of the Summit website, www.sbccsummit.org. From here, you will be able to find the online forms for submitting a proposal abstract. Before you submit an abstract, you will need to register. You can register from the homepage by clicking on the purple button found front and center. You can also register when you go to submit an abstract, where you will be asked to first create an account. I want to just let you know there is no financial commitment to registering. If you plan to attend, you will need to make payment prior to final approval, but you can do that at a later date. So once you click the register button, you will be taken to a registration page where you can find the registration rates. As you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you will find a button that says Ready to Register. Once you click on the Ready to Register button, you will be asked to create an account. This is an example of what a Create an Account page looks like. After you have an account, you will use it to log into the site when you return to it in the future. Once you have registered from the home page, you can easily access the proposal abstract page. You'll notice along the top tab the word Proposals and Abstracts. Clicking this will bring you to the General Submission page. After clicking on the Proposal Abstract tab from the home page, you will be taken to the Proposal Abstract page where you can find the various information you need. The Proposal Abstract page provides you with an overview of guidelines and the process. At the top of the page, you can find links to the guidelines in English, as well as the translated versions in French, Spanish, and Arabic. From here, you can download those guidelines. The guidelines are also available directly on the site if you continue to scroll down. They are quite comprehensive, so you may find it easier to download them so that you have them available offline. The guidelines provide more information on the 3 themes and details of the specific criteria for each format. They also provide the basic outline or fields of the application, as well as the word count for each of the required fields. Please be sure to read closely as you think about your area of expertise in the format that will best showcase it. If you continue to scroll down, you will find more information, including a brief overview and a list of the 7 different submission formats. I'd like to take a moment to reiterate that the SBCC Summit is dedicated to involving youth and would like to support submissions from young participants. If you know of a young person with interest in this field, or if you are a young person, please do your part to encourage and support the participation. If at any point along the way you have any questions or would like guidance, please email us. Also on this page, a little further down, you will find a large purple button to submit a proposal abstract. If you already registered, clicking this will begin the proposal abstract process. If you have not already registered or are not logged in, you will be taken to the Create an Account page that we saw earlier. Once you are logged in and you click on this button, you'll be taken to your personal dashboard. From here, you can update your profile, make pending payments and print invoices, and submit proposals. From your personal dashboard, and when you are ready, you can submit proposals and abstracts. As shown on the previous slide, you will click the My Proposals Abstract button and you will be taken to a page that looks like this. To submit a proposal abstract, click on the green Submit a Proposal Abstract button. If you have already submitted proposals, you will see them listed in the table, organized by the headings on the screen. Please note that once you have submitted, you cannot edit your abstract, but you can withdraw it. When you click on Submit a Proposal, you will begin the submission process. You will be taken to a page that looks like this. The first thing you need to do is to choose your format. Lindsay went through these previously, and they are also included in the guidelines. When you select the format, it will highlight. You'll then click the Next button. After clicking the Next button, you will be taken to the form related to the selected format. Each form and the fields included may look slightly different based on the format you selected. Remember the chart we went through earlier. No matter which format you choose, they all include a summary block. This is that brief representation of your work, which, if accepted, the summary is what will be published in the conference program, distributed to attendees, and available online after the event. Please note, when you see a red star, the field is required. You will not be able to submit until all required fields are complete. You are able to save your work at the bottom of the page, and please remember to save as you go to ensure nothing is lost due to a break in connectivity or power. This is a template for the skills building workshop so that you can see that the fields are just slightly different. Word counts are clearly specified for each of the fields, and the system will not allow you to enter more than the word limit stated. These are also found in the guidelines. Feel free to explore these ahead of time so you know the structure well and you are creating your abstract. You can also find the main fields and the word count outlined in the guidelines. At the bottom of the form, you will find the primary author, presenting author, and co-author details. Your information will be automatically entered. Be sure to add in all relevant authors and co-authors. You can add additional authors by clicking on the Add Co-Author button. You will need to identify who is the primary author and who is the presenting author. Lastly, when you are done, you can either save or submit later. Save and submit later or submit. You will find these buttons at the bottom of the page. If you save your work, you can continue to edit it. If you are ready for it to be reviewed, click Submit. If you hit Submit, I repeat, you will not be able to make edits. I want to take you back to this page, the My Proposals Abstract page we saw earlier. After you save or submit your abstract, you will be able to find it on this page, and it will be listed in the table. If you have no abstracts saved or submitted, you will see no proposals abstracts submitted yet. I want to remind you that if you want to continue to edit your proposal, do not submit it. Save it and return later. Proposals are being reviewed on a rolling basis, and once submitted, will be randomly assigned to a reviewer. That sums up the submission process. But before I end, I want to review a few details or tips about the submission process. Create your abstract ahead of time, and don't forget to use the earlier tips shared by Lindsay. Use the criteria and guidelines the site provides. These will vary slightly depending on the format you choose, but the details are in the guideline document. You can save your work as you go. Saving will also allow you to edit your submission. No further editing can happen after the final deadline. You must submit before that date. And finally, abstracts will be reviewed on a rolling basis. Once you hit submit, you cannot edit. Once you have submitted your proposal abstract, you will receive an email confirming receipt. Submissions should be in English, Spanish, or French. Due to the software, we are unable to accept abstracts in Arabic through the system. You are therefore encouraged to submit in one of the above languages. If for some reason you need to submit in Arabic, please reach out to us at info@sbccsummit.org and we will work with you on that. The submission deadline remains the same, so please plan accordingly.
Thanks so much, Leanne, for reviewing the technical aspects of the submission process. I'm just going to round that out with a reminder about our submission deadline, Thursday, October 31st, 11:59 Eastern Daylight Time. Our intention is to have notification of decisions out by Friday, January 10th, 2020, so that people have plenty of time to register for the summit. I also just want to emphasize that when you submit an abstract, there is the option to review. Each of you will be asked if you would be willing to review abstracts at the end of the submission process. We expect there to be 1,000 or more abstracts and would love to have at least 3 reviewers for each. We also are hoping to have broad global representation from different organizations and areas of practice. Guidance will be provided about how to review abstracts, and we expect each reviewer to be handling between 5 and 10 abstracts of about 500 words each. So please do consider, it's a great way to learn about how the field is developing and to support the efforts of this summit and the field. So I'm going to transition into our question time. Thanks to those of you who have been sending questions in via the chat. We have had a chance to respond to some of them. But I do want to mention a couple that I think would be good to address with the full group. For example, several of you have asked about different formats that can come in: randomized control trials, a thesis document, formative research. Each of those is a reasonable submission. The most important thing is to ensure that they connect with the summit themes and to be sure to think through the format that is appropriate for submission. So once you've had a chance to consider those pieces, please go ahead and submit your abstract. Ultimately, reviewers will decide who is accepted for presentation. We had another question earlier from C. Stephen that said, will you connect up presenters if you think the topics could be linked together for a different type of session? I'm going to ask Leanne to field that one for us.
Yeah, so if you're submitting your proposals, the abstracts will be presented, the oral and the oral presentations will be grouped together. So the idea would be that we would group those abstracts that make the most sense within one session. So the answer would be yes to that.
We have a question about the online portal. How much information is required at submission from co-authors? Do they also need to create an account? And also, I plan to include co-authors on the abstract, but they do not plan to attend the conference. Is that okay? So I'm going to let Heather Finn answer about what information needs to go into the portal.
Hello. Those that are being entered and added as co-authors do not need to create an account. Leanne walked through the steps earlier. If you look at the bottom of the page, when you go to add your co-author information, that is all that is needed to enter them. As far as whether or not co-authors will be added to the abstract but not attend, I'm sorry, I'm glancing around the room. Honestly, I think that is totally fine. That's fine.
Thanks, Heather. Let's see, we have a question that says, if an abstract is accepted, how many presenters are allowed to come to the conference without having to pay the general admission rate? Basically, if you do intend to attend the conference, then admission is required. So one person can present on behalf of a group of authors, but each attendee does pay the fee. In the past, we've also had questions about sponsorship and scholarships. There's more detail on that on the website, but I will say that those generally require an accepted abstract. So your first step is to use those tips from Lindsay and submit a strong proposal for consideration. Can one submit more than one abstract? The answer to that is yes, absolutely. We are asking that you think intentionally about the format that you choose. So the different review committees will be consulting. If the same information is submitted under multiple formats, we'll be looking to figure out which is the best fit. But we would really prefer that you think about the best way to showcase your work and the way that that aligns with the formats available, because that is going to result in a higher quality abstract and a better likelihood of acceptance. For everyone attending the webinar, just a reminder that these slides and the presentation themselves, the presentation itself, this full recording, will be available on the website. Can someone submit a proposal at the same time and be a reviewer? That's a great question, thank you. The answer is yes. When we ask for your information as a reviewer, we also ask for your area of expertise, for things that you feel qualified to review. So we'll be trying to align the submissions with appropriate reviewers. And we will also be on the lookout for potential conflicts of interest. So we would not ask you to review something from someone in your own organization, other areas where that might make that challenging for you. Yes, please do volunteer, in short. Thank you. Let's see. I'm just scanning our chat box here. Give me just a minute, please. My connectivity dipped in and out, so I may have missed detail on the blue sky. Yeah, that I want to just circle back to that, just to say that is a new format this year. I think building on events from the 2018 summit, where there really was some stimulating conversation about new directions in the field. So we're looking to formalize those conversations a little bit to really encourage people to bring their big ideas. What are the topics and trends that you see developing, but around which we don't have a lot of evidence yet? How can we begin to anticipate ways that social and behavior change communication needs to go? What are some of the challenges that we might encounter? And how can we as a collective invested in this field really work together to strengthen our approaches? Is there any criteria to favor participation of any specific group? Thanks for that question. We are putting an emphasis on youth participation. I want to encourage our listeners again, really to ask yourself, who is a promising young person that you know who is interested in this field? And is there a way that you can support their participation? You know, again, I think the reviewers make the ultimate decision on participation, but that youth voice and influence is something we're really looking to emphasize. We'd love to have as many join us in March in Marrakesh as possible. So please do your part as a mentor and as an expert in the field to build and strengthen capacity among the next generation. Can I submit an abstract for ongoing work where results are not ready at the moment, but will be ready by the time of the conference? The answer is yes. It will be up to the reviewers to determine where that fits and sort of what the potential is. So a lot will depend on how you frame your abstract and the potential impact that you're able to describe even at this stage. I'm gonna let Leanne add to that.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you talk about the discussion, you'd want to talk a little bit around how you would frame it towards either improving the field, the results may come back negatively. So being prepared to actually present those negative results and talk about the lessons learned for that, or if they're positive results, how that impacts the field as well. So.
I want to just circle back quickly to the preformed panel format as well. There was the good question about if you submit for a preformed panel and are not accepted, is it possible for individual abstracts from that panel to be submitted automatically?
Right.
And on that, the answer is no.
Correct. Sorry, so let me just paraphrase again. So if you do in fact submit a preformed panel and for whatever reason the committee does not deem it to be worthy on its own merits, we will not automatically convert those to individual abstracts. So if that is a concern, we encourage you to submit them. Yeah, submit them individually with the caveat that they were in fact submitted as a preformed panel as well.
So there was a question around the use of the term diversity and what that actually means. So, I think we're taking a broad look at that. We are looking at diversifying participants, inclusion of different groups that we haven't necessarily engaged with previously. We're also looking at possibly how your submission or abstract might address diversity issues. So I think it's not necessarily a very straightforward. We're looking at diversity across the board. So I hope that answers that question.
Okay, we just have a few minutes left. I want to take a second to bring your attention to the slide that's up now. If there are chat questions that we haven't been able to get to, we will have your email through the chat box and we'll try to respond personally. There's also the mechanism through the info@sbccsummit.org where you can submit questions. Sloan Prince, who has been managing our Tech Today, fields those and will make sure to get back to you. We also are developing a frequently asked questions list on the website, so please do look for that on the SBCC website. I'm going to ask Sloan to post that link in the chat box right now so it's easy to find. And I also want to mention Springboard. Springboard is another place where we are promoting a lot of the activities around the summit. If you're not already connected to Springboard, I would encourage you to consider joining. There's no fee to join, it's just a matter of registration. And it's a very vital and active online community of SBC professionals who really are passionate about making a difference in the world. Through Springboard, they have access to experts, the latest series and tools, and stimulating discussions and educational opportunities in order to advance the field's knowledge and skills. So if you're not already a member, please do consider that a potential tool that might interest you. Just a couple of links that we've touched on here, your registration link again, the proposals and abstracts page. I want to remind you that this same webinar will be conducted in Arabic, Spanish, and French. Those dates and times are on the proposals abstracts page under the webinar tab in the menu. Sloan is going to post that in the chat box as well. So on Monday, it'll be conducted in Arabic, Wednesday in Spanish, and Thursday in French. Please do feel free to tell colleagues who may benefit from those options. We hope you'll consider signing up to be an abstract reviewer. And just for those of you who are interested in the ComTalks format in particular, we've posted 3 from the summit in Indonesia in 2018, just as examples. So they really are a dynamic way to have one person engage with a broad audience around a big idea. I want to be sure to end on time and respect the effort that you've made to be here. But I can't end without saying thanks so much to our speakers, Leanne Wolf, Lindsay Leslie, Andrew Cunningham, thanks for being here to support. Sloan Prince for the tech, and Heather Finn as well. I hope you all have found this webinar helpful. Again, please do feel free to continue sending in questions. And a very special thanks to the steering committee members from Johns Hopkins University, UNICEF, the Soul City Institute, the Social Change Factory, the American University of Beirut, Puntos de Encuentro, and Digital Green. We look forward to receiving your abstracts and hope to see you all and hear about your work when the summit convenes in March. Thanks very much.